pleased to introduce Razan with us on the podcast today, Razan Niazi, on the Anything Everything podcast. Razan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Razan. Thank you. I also have a podcast without sukkar, Bdoun Sukkar, without sugar. It's a podcast made for people who need space to exist safely and to be able to discuss things openly. So I'm a very direct, can we say no BS?
No bullshit.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah.
No bullshit podcast. Well, thank you guys.
No, perfect. Thank you for coming on. And our topic today is around challenging and maybe breaking cultural norms. So we talked a little bit about this, especially in the Arab world. I think there's always an issue with how the world is changing and our inability sort of to match or adapt, right, to a changing world, be it because of technology or, social norms. But we're facing a struggle, right? And it's between men and women. And I think we can touch on that today.
How do you want to start?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. There's so many starting points.
There really are, right? And I think one of the main things is because of, we're going back to, in terms of technology, right? There's much more technology in the world now, in our lives. And one of the areas that we see challenges are with traditional gender roles, right? In the Arab world, again, now with the region that we're in, it's a very mixed society. So there's a clash and there's a coming together of different cultures. So with the gender roles, it's difficult to sort of, you have maybe on one side people that want to maintain certain things. They don't like change. They don't like things that they don't understand. And they, maybe hate it, maybe just avoid it. And then you have the people that are much more agile, right? Maybe younger generation, I think we can say that, like ourselves and younger, they're more agile. They can sustain change. They have room to change mentally and, physically. So,
the older you get, your beliefs and cultural values get embedded, I feel like, more deeply, and they become more ingrained. So it becomes harder to change your view specifically towards things that you've believed your whole life. So if there are certain gender roles that you believe in, like a man should be like this, a woman should be like this, then it's going to be very hard to change the older you get if you spent your whole life believing it.
And I think it's also a survival thing. Like, it's like, how we have in our societies a lot of immigrants who leave Lebanon.
Yeah.
They end up keeping, or it's like a time capsule of identity that they never evolved. And then you see the Lebanese people in Lebanon have evolved or adopted new ideas and thinking, and they're still stuck in what they traveled with. So I feel like the more you get challenged, or from what we saw, the more you get challenged, the more you will hold on to your beliefs.
It gets defensive almost.
I think so. You're less prone or open to change.
Yeah.
I have an example actually. But even though I don't know if we're still considered younger generation, let's say we are.
Oh, please.
Who are we?
Come on.
I love it. No, because this is a very young example. So my little brother, who's 24, he's 10 years younger. And his best friend moved here, and they're both as well same university and everything. They're working together. My little brother has been used to Dubai because he came a few times. The other one is a very religious, very conservative person. He could not adjust. He could not adjust for the life of him. And he's 24 at the end of the day. So he wouldn't go to places that had alcohol. He was never exposed to it in Lebanon, which is also, that's a lot of work to not be exposed to that. And he wanted to go back home and get him a new wife. He did, those people, like when they have specific things. Yes, exactly. A very fixed journey. And it was very interesting because I thought they would be more open. Like Dubai is it opens your eyes to things because we don't live like this. And you see things that you're not used to. So what I saw is people who remain that way and get challenged a lot and leave. And he left. He actually got fired because he messed up in a consultancy job. Different story, different day. But he just left and went back to Lebanon. He could not handle Dubai. And I feel like Dubai is one of those cities that you can't handle. For some cultures, you can't handle. But the other part of the spectrum is what I saw is a lot of men, especially Arabs, get really challenged because they see what they've been told they can't have or they shouldn't have. It's wrong. And they end up with women that their moms will never agree to, waste 3-4 years of their life and hers, and then get lost, and then maybe go back to what they were. It's very interesting. And I feel like Dubai specifically, or something like Dubai, because it's Arab and influenced, impacts the values a lot of people carry. And I think they don't know what to do with that. And I've seen it more in men than women. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I've seen men just struggle really hard with their values here.
I've seen that firsthand. And it feels like in our, I don't know what it is, but there's something about the male culture that makes it, I don't know how to explain it, but it makes it very hard to try to overcome the cultural expectations that are placed on you. But at the same time, when you're somewhere that becomes much more open and much more progressive, you start challenging that. And there seems to be an internal struggle with people who end up challenging the culture that they're from. And it sometimes becomes kind of a crisis. Where you're doing something that your culture doesn't believe in. So I'm gonna go into the example of that is more of religion. So our culture is Druze, so we're a minority religion in Lebanon and some in Syria. The religious culture, the way that things happen and things work traditionally, is that if you're Druze, you get married to a Druze, and your kids are Druze. So the parents they're very into that sort of type of thinking. So if the kid goes off and finds someone who isn't Druze and they fall in love with them, it's very, very hard for their parents to accept that fact. Now, I'm lucky because my parents didn't care. My mom was Christian. My dad is Druze, so that's fine. But among friends, for example, especially the ones that leave Lebanon, they sometimes tend to find a non-Druze partner, and it makes it very hard for their parents to accept it. So there's that challenge. And then I don't know what would happen later if they're going to go back, but it forms some kind of a crisis for sure.
I don't think we were equipped to deal with it. Because you wouldn't expect that you're gonna, I didn't expect to live in Dubai. I didn't expect, hatta for a while, I didn't even expect to even live on my own for a bit, which is culturally will never happen in my life.
That's one of the other things as well. But on your point, it's definitely, there's a difference between how men and women are treated with that aspect. And because in a sense, they're more protective of who women marry versus who men. And it comes back to religious. It's probably a religious view.
Is it religious or more conservative?
But it's conservative because it's religious?
I don't know. I hear we mix culture and religion a lot. I mean, in our countries.
We do. We do, certainly. It's hard to, draw the line.
Religiously, as a woman, you can't marry a non-Muslim. But as a man, you can.
Other religions are the same, right? Like Judaism, Christianity, to a certain extent?
Yeah, you're right.
So the man, I think so. I think the man can marry outside of the religion, and the kids will stay. So if the man is Christian, and the wife is not, the kids can stay Christian. Whereas the opposite, I think religiously, I don't know.
No, for us it's the same. But that's the reason why we can't marry non-Muslim, because the kids will not be Muslim supposedly, and the woman has to obey the man. So if he were to tell her that you can't practice your religion, she has to listen to him.
I see.
Those are the two reasons that we were given when we were learning all of this. So that's the issue. But you're right.
So the woman has to obey the man. Is that a religious thing or a cultural thing or both?
Religious that turned culturally wrong. I think we messed up with a lot of understanding that.
Okay, how explain that?
Because the idea was, I think the man was supposed to be the provider and the protector, but that did not mean you needed to take away rights from women.
It's not absolute.
We turned it into the I'm going to say in Arabic, we have the main thing we have is الرجال قوامون على النساء, and that can be open to a lot of interpretation. But the way I think culturally it was taken, they're the sole owner of the woman, legally, culturally. Why is my little brother? Why does it, in the Saudi context or GCC context, the little brother has so much power on me?
Right.
And for a long time, I needed a legal guardian. For a long time, you know what I mean? So the way we took that, instead of you are my provider, my protector, you became my owner.
I see.
So I think...
So it's a cultural misinterpretation
I think so.
I think
what the religion intended.
Yeah.
100%. And I think it's just a matter of application because while you can have there are certain rules, and I think this is where it comes down to. It comes down to rules and then how they're applied. Now, when they're applied like for like, and this very same, the way it was 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, I think that's what causes the problem because the world has changed. The dynamics have changed. It's a globalized world. As you were saying, that people are mixing all the time. When you stayed in your tribe or village for your entire life, it made sense that you're marrying your cousin or your cousin's cousin.
Yeah.
But when you lived in Dubai, it's a globalized city. So,
Actually, I reached a place before I got married to Ahmed. I was like, I made peace with the idea that I would never get married because I thought I'm too Arab for non-Arab.
Okay.
And I'm too Westernized for Arabs. Did I say it right? Yeah.
Nice.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
So you're caught in the
middle
no
again.
man's land.
And because I would never change. I was the girl who lived alone for a bit. I travel. I make my own money. And I'm the first in my generation of my family to do that as a female, to have my own career.
And it was very important to you.
Yes. I learned for the longest time that being female is weak. Indirectly. Because I saw how my family and my mom and my aunts were completely owned by men. And it was survival to be married. Now it's not survival to be married, right?
It was like man provide, kill, women procreate and raise.
Yeah, but you need that. And then as it evolved, you can't make money. You will never be independent, right? So I knew I needed to get the best education I could, or whatever access I had, which was limited. I was even thankful that I could go to Lebanon to study, where everyone in my school went to the US on scholarships, fully paid scholarships. And I could have gotten it, but my dad was like, no, you're not going anywhere. So fine. And I graduated with distinction. I did everything well. I double major, all of just to get ASAP, to get out as soon as possible, and to get a job that pays me okay as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Financial independence was so important.
What gave you that drive? Even though culturally you were mentioning how it's like you felt like it was weak to be a woman. What gave you the drive to try to break through that
Because
sort of
that's
thinking?
what I saw. I saw my family, my mom, all the women in my family who were mistreated by their husbands, including my dad, which I talk about it openly in my podcast. It wasn't a good marriage. My parents were divorced. I come from a family full of divorces because the men had too much power and the women didn't.
Yeah.
And the women were all very ambitious and wanted to complete their education. Their dad didn't let them. So you can see the direct, this is what happens. You're not independent, a man will control you. And I did not want that. There was so much.
The recipe was there for not to work. Yeah.
And you see it. It was firsthand. And back then, a lot of men, a lot of men hurt the woman by controlling her kids.
Right.
There's a big, I'm sure you guys have heard in all of your societies.
Yeah.
I was an outcome of that. My dad banned us from seeing our mom for so long.
Yeah.
And you can see the pain, you can see the hurt. So you can see that control, that the woman had nothing. And legally she had no power either. Yeah. So I was like, no, that cannot be my life.
Yeah.
So I graduated, did everything, got a job. But unfortunately I was a caregiver to my dad. So my life kind of was put on hold for a few years until he passed away. But then I became too powerful as a woman.
Okay.
I had my own job. Luckily, I was privileged enough to work in very good companies. I had my own home. I traveled. I was independent.
Too powerful in the eyes of who?
Our culture and men.
But why
So
do you
did you
think there's
feel-
resistance? Why do you think there's resistance? Sorry.
From who?
Like for example, for your dad to, oppose the children being raised by the mom's way.
It's the way he controlled and impacted my mom. But also religiously had all the power. In Saudi, we follow a specific school of thought. And when there's a divorce, the father gets the kids.
Yeah.
Other schools of thought, like in Lebanon, are different Islamically. So ours was that the boys chooses by 7, the girl doesn't have a choice.
That's interesting because in the Western world and in a lot of countries, it's the opposite. The women has the rights to the kids, but so it seems to be a very, very paternal culture and society in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. A lot of, not only Saudi, it's
A lot of the Arab
the GCC
world.
and the Arab world.
The
I
Arab
think
world in
especially back
general.
then in the 90s to 2000s, this was very strong.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the hardest years to be a woman, I would say, an Arab world.
Yeah.
I think it's also because they just didn't conceive of, the idea that a woman should work. That's partially it.
There was
Is
a
that
complete ownership.
they didn't think that, okay, maybe, the woman can provide. and they oppose that.
It wasn't, I think,
till today.
a thought. Yeah, it wasn't a thought. But also...
So it just made sense that, okay, you know what, who's going to provide the dad? Okay, so just let's put them under the dad's, bill.
Yeah, and my mom didn't work then.
One thing, it's a bit of a tangent, not quite, but when I was applying for my residency and for my wife's residency, there's an occupation, housewife,
yes.
but there isn't house husband.
Yeah.
So
that's culture.
Good observation.
Yeah.
Pure culture.
Yeah.
So that'll tell you like what the difference is.
Yeah.
And then it's the meaning, right?
It is.
For some, just to put that, that's your occupation. Like it's, putting a label on it like that, I think.
It's sad. It's a bit sad to say it that way because it is reductionist, as you were saying.
Yeah.
It's just, you're just that. And a lot of people look down on it. You're just that. You're not a productive member of society. And it goes back to what we were saying the other day.
The provider bias.
Yeah, and also we don't celebrate what women are naturally good for, and we look down at it, like being a housewife. This is what everyone was. It's my aunt, it's my mom, that's everyone. Yeah. And this is why were capable married men were capable to have it all.
Yeah. Who's building the family if
exactly.
it's not the mother?
A man would never be asked, if they're going on an interview, they're never going to be asked, are you married and are you planning to conceive? The woman will be asked, and she might not get hired for it. Yeah. So I know someone who just interviewed. She was 3-4 months pregnant. She's not Arab, but in Dubai. And she was just asking about, what's your HR policy for pregnancy? You just, let me know. They're like, no, we have the 45 days. And we're very strict with it. And that was for her a big question mark. And then they asked her, why are you asking so much about it? Is it because you're willing to conceive? Willing to conceive. Yeah. Don't even think about having a child if you're starting a job with us.
Yeah.
These things we hear a lot of times, and I heard other people, they're like, I wouldn't employ someone who just got married.
Yeah.
And like a few, like when another
even
job,
if she's pregnant, sorry.
Yeah.
Right? Even if while she's pregnant, she might not get hired.
Especially if she's pregnant.
Right?
Especially.
So,
man will never be asked that, but he will have it all. At the end of the day, he would have the C-level job with 3 kids who are in amazing schools. But a woman has to.
But they barely see their dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a strange one. I think that we're behind the Western world in terms of equality and gender roles, 100%. But there definitely has been a bit of progression. You could see that there's improvement in the way gender roles are treated.
What have you seen
in the region? I've seen more freedom.
For who?
For the woman.
Okay.
To go wherever they want to wear whatever they want to. I'm noticing more and more, especially among the younger generation, that they're hiring women as well as men in like managerial roles. It's still nowhere near equal, but it's getting a bit better, which is a good sign. Because this kind of change, I think, is really hard to implement quickly, right? You need to change people's fundamental ways of thinking.
And biases.
It's not an easy challenge to overcome. And I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but I think there are steps towards improvement. However, due to Arab culture, I don't know how far it can get. Because even in the West today, there's still not perfect equality. Nowhere near perfect equality in terms of the gender roles.
True. And I think it's hard, but it's also, I think, just to look at it from the different point of view a little bit, is that it does take time. Like while you see, even like in the public sector, you have a lot of roles that have been taken by women in Saudi, in the UAE, for example.
These are great great examples of what they're doing, but
exactly. Like you need the young generation to bring that sort of enthusiasm and that energy. It's not gonna. I think it's down to a little bit education as well. Is that you need people that are fresh and educated, that have higher degrees, or higher education. Sorry, that can assume these roles.
But then
so it's a bit of that.
You need the parents to allow them to do that.
True.
You know what I mean? I agree with you. You need to start seeing this, but these are privileged people as well, and sometimes there's a disconnect, and I've seen it in Saudi and other places. There's a disconnect between these people and the mass. They're like, we'll never be that. It'll never happen. Like, for example, when Saudi announced the driving for women, 2017 maybe, great news, everything. But I know families who are seemingly progressive and and wealthy and everything. They're like, no, my wife / sister / whatever will never drive. Never happen. And these are your progressive people.
But maybe their grandkids will.
Yeah.
their granddaughters will end up
so
driving.
It started with something, but there's a lot of that you have to break. And I'm glad that the niche is growing. You know, it's not that only a few people who we don't relate to anymore or resonate to are the educated. I'm glad we're seeing more mass or more push. And visibility is very important.
Yeah.
I think that's
100%.
the only way to get through.
Yeah, being transparent, showing empowerment, allowing people to be more outspoken. I think that's one of the main ones as well. Just speaking more openly.
Where did it? So how did it start? Like, in terms of the piece where it's inequality, I think it's important to note down historically how we got to that point, right? Because right now there's a very strong movement towards women's empowerment in the world, which I 100% agree with. I think women are just as capable as men to perform, you know, the jobs that require thinking. Obviously, we can talk about the physical stuff, and it's a different conversation.
Yeah, but society has changed and economy has changed.
Yeah, but previously the way it all started was that in the historic times, medicine was very bad. And when a woman got pregnant and gave birth, she had to always be tending to the kids, and the husband had to be the one that would go out and would work and would get and that goes back to probably even days when we were hunter-gatherers, right? The women would be the caretakers, the men would go out and do the hunting. That's how it is. It's not like that in the animal kingdom. Like, for example, lions, the women, the females are the hunters, right? So, but that's how it was with humanity. And it evolved to the point where there became, now because there isn't that expectation anymore on the woman to necessarily be the caretaker. Okay, the women get pregnant and give birth, but a lot of the times they have ambition and they have desires to accomplish something and they have a certain goal that they want to get to, right? Because they're human, and humans generally are ambitious. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. That's what we're trying to break, I think, as a society as a whole. Is that kind of thinking that's been ingrained in us for the longest time.
Yeah, you were telling us about this provider bias. You had an example on if as a woman, how can you get?
I think from your expression, there's something you disagree with what I said.
Yes.
So what is it?
I'm trying to think of do I agree or not. I don't agree. I mean, I do to an extent. But I think, خلاص, the idea, women can work and ambition, blah, blah, that exists. But when you look around you, gender norms are very strong. Very, very strong. I'll give you a very small example. When you see a couple with a child, Arab, who's taking care of the child?
The woman.
Yeah.
Ask how many fathers change diapers, especially diapers, especially.
Yeah.
In the West, a lot. Over here,
but that's also new. That's also new. In the West,
probably
it's newer. Yes, it's actually new. Like in the grand scheme of things,
it's new. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, they definitely need to share, but I think that, like, for example, not to defend these dads that you don't want to be lazy, right? Or say it's your job, which is
I mean, they say that today even. The Arab males, that's kind of their thinking. Not all of them. I'm not going to generalize. But a lot of them, that's how they think.
I agree. Yes, they do. And it's just, for me, maybe that's one of the reasons I still didn't even consider having kids until that bias is removed. I don't think I want to have kids.
From your husband or from society?
In general. Actually, I mean, he seems like he will be helping, but you never know what happens in reality. And I don't know how I'm going to be as a mother if I were to. But that's one of the things. I was like, I see this. I'm like, no.
So why do you have a big problem with that bias?
Because it's a woman's job. I'm sorry, if we're both working, no, it's our job. If I'm not working, I'll consider it.
Wait. If we're both working...
It's not my job only.
Oh, no,
this is your child. This is your child too.
A husband and wife affair.
And also the word, and there's a lot of, it's going viral, the world, I'm helping. No, you're not doing me a favor.
Yeah.
This is your home. Yeah. Stop acting like I'm cleaning after you. Stop acting like you do nothing. Look, it bothers me so much. It's not only about taking care of the child. Like, you'll see an Arab family where the mother is engaging with the kids or pacifying them. Not necessarily babies. They're like 11, tweens. And the dad's on his phone, checking his phone. That angers me. It angers me so much because this is not equality. Because
but here's the question. What if the woman is happy doing that? I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm not someone who...
Women, no one is happy to feel alone. You know why there's a high divorce rate right now, especially led by women globally, and there's a big number about women who are 30 and above. They're more likely to have their own home and no children and no husband in the next 10 years. It's a global study. It's a global research.
Okay.
Because we don't need men to survive anymore. Khalas, right?
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
So what men are turning into is someone else I have to take care of without giving me back the emotional support and need. If I have to tell you to pick up something and delegate, and I've had it from my husband, we had this whole issue about it. He's like, keep just telling me what to do. No, why can't you see? You have eyes. Why can't you see the dishes are not done?
I'm worried that she's gonna start giving my wife ideas. I'm joking.
Don't let her listen to this.
She's westernized. Don't worry about it.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We what's the word? We bubble wrapped them, our Arab men, so much.
Of course.
As children.
Yeah.
And didn't allow them to help or lift a finger at home. Let's be honest.
Yeah, there's a very strong preference to the male child.
Yes.
And
they're the golden child.
Yeah.
No matter what. And the woman, what I was saying last time is, how many times have you heard your sister, the mom saying to the sister or whoever, خيك زعلان مش وقته هلا أو بيك زعلان. We made sure that they don't see anything negative at all. So how are they going to handle their wives and kids and whatnot?
Yeah.
You know, it's very infuriating to see that, because yes, we have made advances and women have ambition. I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of the whole thing. Yeah. I'm not. Okay, don't look at me like that. He wants to kill me.
Wow.
I'm not making fun of you, but this is I'm really passionate about this.
I know.
I'm really not making.
But I said that with like I'm really.
Like it's a baseline.
No. I'm saying there's still a lot of progress to be made.
Yeah.
Do you disagree with that?
That word? No, أكيد لا.
No, but I think
I'm so
your
sorry.
point...
I really didn't mean
No,
that.
but what part? I'm still trying to figure out what part of what I said you disagree with, because
it sounds so, it glamorizes where we are, and yeah, women have ambition. Yeah.
So where's the area that really needs work?
That's the point.
The ambition part. I mean, yeah, we all acknowledge these things.
Part.
No, we all acknowledge these things.
Okay.
We all acknowledge when a woman wants to do things.
Okay.
But then when things are real, when you're getting pregnant, when you're getting married, if women achieve all of these things and they're not married and they're not pregnant, something's always wrong.
But here's
especially
the
in the Middle
thing:
East.
women ask women that. It's not just men asking.
I agree with you.
That.
It's not. It's all of us.
Yeah.
It's all of us. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's a systemic issue.
But no, when I was telling you, I don't think I gave up on getting married. I felt like a failure. From my own self, you know, because you are taught as a woman. Okay, I think now I know what annoyed me, because our ambition was what's the word? Was founded on being married,
and starting
being
a family.
chosen, and starting a family. So even to change that programming for people my age and younger, it's really, really hard. When we were in school, the only thing we talked about is getting married.
But you were never programmed like that. You just went against the grain the whole time.
Because I couldn't handle it. I was.
Do you think that other women are like many other women are like you?
No.
So how would you change that?
I struggle with a lot of women. Some women find me too much or find me too whatever, aggressive.
But how would you go about changing the way other women think? Because that's really important in order to progress.
It's hard to change people who don't want to change, right? I give up at
It's
something.
the environment. I think the environment, and I'm trying to not justify, but trying to understand and empathize why it happens. It's because when society was very simple, you would just go like, okay, what's everyone doing?
No one wants to stand out.
It was very simple lifestyle. Okay, you're born, you get married, you raise children, and then that's it.
Yeah.
When society evolved and changed and advanced in the past century, of course, things are going to change, and there are clashes. I think we get that. But your point, I want to tie this a little bit around the emotional intelligence angle, is that part of it as well as men's inability maybe to communicate well, understand and express their emotions, understand their significant others better, right? So maybe that's an angle as well that we should touch on, is that there is lack of communication, there's a misunderstanding of what you're feeling and what the other person's feeling.
They never needed to.
They never needed to, right? Because especially it was just survival.
Yeah, especially and especially
and
Arabs.
suppressed.
Fictive survival, fictive suppression.
Yeah.
They never need to. My brothers don't know how to communicate. I have to be the mediator.
There you go.
And that's another emotional load and emotional labor that you have to take on.
Because they can't show weakness.
Yeah.
They can't show weakness.
They can't. Like, I was talking through them. I was like, this is what he means. This is what he means. What are you going to say? And then he talks to me and then I have to talk to him.
You're the mediator.
And I was like, I can't do this. I can't. And I stepped back because they need to learn. But it's very hard to see it. And
did they ever admit not knowing something?
No.
Really?
I don't think so. No.
There's an interesting example. We spoke about this before. Russell Peters, in one of his stand-ups, said that he realized that one of the problems in the Arab society, he said that men cannot say, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
If you ask them for their directions and they don't know what, like, you stop in the street in Lebanon and you ask a man for directions. They give you wrong directions
With
rather
confidence.
than saying, I don't know what you're talking
Exactly,
about.
yeah.
If they don't know what you're saying, they're just going to say, yeah, just go down, take a left. You go down, take a left. You're like, I don't know where the hell.
Have you guys ever been in that situation where you didn't say, I don't know? You
No,
couldn't say?
I say I don't know a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, before, I'll admit there are times, when I was younger, for sure.
What was going through your head, if you remember?
It's some bias. It's some inherent, belief that I should know. It's kind of like it's better to be kind of right than be wrong, which
So
is it's a
interesting.
very bad thing. You have to. And we spoke about this a little bit. That
No,
even,
you mean it's better to be wrong than to not know. That's how a lot of Arabs think.
It's
It's
better-
better to be wrong than to not know.
than to not know. Okay.
Yeah.
Better be
Yeah.
wrong to not know. But
Yeah.
what were the repercussions in your head of not knowing? Like, have you seen other people get in trouble
No,
or being
I think
bullied?
it's just insecurity. It's just insecurity and thinking that I should know everything, or I should know this stuff. And then when you study like philosophy and you see like the most basic statement, Socrates, right? I know that I know nothing. So that
And
clashes.
the more that you know that you
The
don't
big-
know.
Yeah.
I think the big piece is culturally we are, and this is a man thing all over the world, but also Arabs, where we are raised to not show vulnerability. And not knowing is a sign of vulnerability. If you say you don't know something, you're exposing a weakness.
Chink in your armor.
Then what made you be able to say, I don't know? Is it something you saw at home?
It's the way I was raised. Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah. And I was raised by my mom mostly, and she didn't raise me in the Arab male kind of way. So I'm generally more emotional than Arab males. I'm much easily more vulnerable. Like I can get vulnerable without a problem. I can say I don't know to things. I don't have an attachment to my opinions. Like I can let go if I hear an opinion that I feel like, okay, that makes sense.
So on Arab. You know how we're very big on opinions. We're very big on our opinions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So-
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to. Part of it as well is like there are certain things that your opinion maybe doesn't really matter. Like if you're talking about yourself too much, it's not about your opinion of yourself. It's about how people judge you. For example, like if someone says I'm humble, that's meaningless. It's meaningless if I say that because it's a contradiction. Number one, and number two, you should judge me.
Is that Arab, you think, or is that?
Partially, I think so.
So
You know what I mean?
But then is this because نحن as Arab we base our value a lot on extrinsic
Yeah. External
Yeah.
validators.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a lot because that's a survival. We are what's the word? We
social
are
animals.
collective.
Yeah.
We're collective, right? So is that where it's coming from?
A little bit, and I think it depends, right? There are certain things that you need your own self-talk, and there are other things you need feedback from the world. You don't know. How do you know if you're messing up if you don't get feedback? So that's kind of how I see it. Now, again, if we talk about like pure biology, when you say that you can't show vulnerability, if you show vulnerability, there's a weakness. If you show weakness, it can be exploited. And that's how it trickles, or you build it up in your mind that I'm going to get exposed, or I'm going to lose, or I'm going to get attacked.
Yeah.
Like I hope this is a good historic example, but in the show Game of Thrones, there's a scene, I don't know if you've seen
Love
it.
Game of Thrones.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
In season 1,
Yeah.
the horse, leader, Khal Drogo,
Yeah.
falls off his horse.
Oh yeah.
When he falls off his
Yeah.
horse, the tribesmen are like, he's not fit to rule us anymore.
He's done.
So,
Yeah.
so that's the mindset
Yeah.
back then. Like it doesn't matter if he sneezed, if a bee stung him. You can't justify it. You just go like, that's it. He's not strong enough.
But we're not there. We're
Of
not.
course,
We're not in those
exactly,
communities
exactly.
anymore.
But we
so
need to understand.
How do we change that? How do you change it? Are you guys comfortable saying in front of your guy friends, I don't know, or in front of work?
No,
Front
of
work?
course. I mean, you have to
Are you
adopt
comfortable?
failure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you are-
Now, yeah, like
okay.
obviously hopefully we've matured and we're older, but failure is a necessary process.
But I think we're a bit different. I think a lot of Arabs still struggle. Arab men struggle saying, I don't know.
Do you see it in your friends?
My close friends have the same or similar mindset
Yeah.
to me.
Again, it's our environment, right? You're like
Yeah,
you're the
yeah,
average of the
you're
5
right.
people you
Yeah,
hang
yeah.
around with. So in a
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But with acquaintances, yes,
At least,
I've seen
okay.
it.
Interesting.
No,
Or
it's
like
still there.
family friends
Yes.
that I'm not
That's
very
easier.
close to.
Yeah.
I've seen it, and I usually don't. I don't like engaging with them just because we clash in the way we view the world. And I feel like, I know it's kind of almost self-fulfilling prophecy here, but I feel like my view of the world is more progressive, which means I find it hard relating to men who are very bound to their cultural traditions and their cultural values.
Yeah.
And
Maybe that's wrong of me. I don't know, but that's the way I see it.
I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier, that we have a hard time identifying with people who are originally, or as we said, we all had similar experience when we went to study in Lebanon. We could not
Assimilate very well.
Yes,
Yeah.
and maybe that's one of them. And I realize how much I am very uncomfortable around like people who are not mixed. Very, very uncomfortable. I don't, like at one point, خلاص, there's nothing else to say. There's nothing to add.
Yeah.
We're not.
It's just your view of the world is
very
different.
What
different.
about people who are very traditionally? So you did mention this briefly, but if you're like, can you be friends with a woman who has a very traditional Arab
I
culture?
have friends who are like that.
And do you feel like it's easier to talk and communicate with them?
Depends. It's very interesting. But
Depends
what
on
I
the topic.
notice is they come to me to talk about things. So I become an outlet, which is great. This is where I see I
So
can
you
make
feel like
change.
they want to change?
I think so, or at least they want to hear, because not everyone is open to hear other opinions, including ourselves.
Yeah.
We're just saying that. So I've had conservative friends or more religious friends, and they have to have a level of openness to understand my life as well, my lifestyle, because I don't follow cultural.
Yeah, not
behavior.
typical. Yeah,
Yes.
not typical.
And it's a very interesting exchange for the people who are open to it. For other people, no, I was called names when I was younger.
Yeah.
I knew you're this, whatever that means.
Oh yeah.
حتى my family, they're like, oh, if you do this, it's going to be bad on your reputation, for your reputation. I've heard these things.
Yeah. And
but-
as a woman, women
Yeah.
hear that a lot more than men do.
Yeah. But men, especially in the GCC, are very comfortable leading double lives. Very, very comfortable leading double lives. Women, it's a bit harder.
Yeah.
Like that's why there's a lot of cheating. There's a lot of, and also we are Muslims are polygamous anyway, so it's
Yeah.
kind of easier culturally. But women is very hard. But a lot of men, and this is why I found sad. Me and Ahmed always talk about it. He was like, he wanted to marry someone he could travel with and do whatever they want to do. But a lot of men in Saudi don't. They have the boys trip and they have the family trip. Those are two different people, two different personalities, two different activities.
Okay.
So me and Ahmed are actually kind of a rare couple to do that. And I've heard it from my other guy, my brother's friends who are Saudi, who married married women that their moms wanted, not the women that they wanted. Miserable.
Oh, okay.
Miserable. So
Yeah, because they've led a lifestyle that's completely against that. Yeah.
and they can't, and there's so much shame to tell the wife, I want this, I want to do this. And it could be as small as smoking argili.
Shisha.
Yeah, shisha, which is,
Yeah.
for us, is very normal, but for some people, no, it's shameful. You can't be seen doing these things.
Wow.
It's so interesting. And so the only way to live something fulfilling is by having two different lifestyles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, I lost. I think I went on a tangent, but
All good. So, in conclusion, I think it's a very complex topic that we can't really do justice in the amount of time that we had, and maybe even if we had like 4 or 5 hours, Lex Friedman style, we'd still have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, always.
Maybe we should do that at some point.
Yeah, just open conversation. But it was a really, really good conversation. I think there are some interesting viewpoints and asking you around like how women think in this part of the world, and then you reciprocated. You asked us how the men think, and I think that's a very good way for us to, as a society in the world, to progress towards more equality, and especially when it comes to like gender norms and things like that. So once you understand how we think and we understand how you think, it'll be much more easier to empathize, because as we progress, these things are going to keep changing and they're going to stay fluid. And it's important that the communication stays open.
I feel part of the bias is, I'm glad that you said what you said, because part of the bias is, I think some men, or maybe in our region, don't want to know or don't care to know how other women think, how women think.
Yeah.
That comes from the arrogance and that I'm always right, or I don't admit to anything wrong, so what you're going to say doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad we're having this, and I had a point, but I forgot.
All good. Sami, do you have any final thoughts?
Just your point on the empathy angle. the way I think about it is that, again, because men and women are to a certain extent different. While we try and empathize, I think we know deep down we're never going to, like, I can't put myself in your shoes, but it's about the attempt.
Yeah.
It's about trying.
Yeah.
I think both sides.
Yes.
Maybe women are a bit more receptive to this than men are, as you were saying.
Yeah.
From our society, in that example, I don't know how it is other areas around the world, but in our society, we're kind of like, it's just wajah ras, or like it's a bit of a headache.
Yeah. Why bother?
As you were saying, we need an open communication. We need better understanding of the emotional intelligence, right? About understanding your emotions and sharing with certain people. It doesn't mean go and be an open book, but
you could.
I mean, you could be.
You could
That's
be.
how
But that's a topic maybe for
But
another
that's
discussion.
that's the man's bias.
Yeah,
Maybe
could
that's
It
a
doesn't
topic.
mean you go be an open
But
book.
why
It's like this is a
not?
bad thing.
Yeah.
We can
see?
get- let's
Good
talk about
catch.
that one.
thing.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that one.
As a woman and maybe representing some women, I need to ask you a favor, and whoever's listening to your podcast, we need people like you or men like you who make other men accountable.
Yeah.
How do you want us to try them?
Do whatever you want, but make them
Trial by fire.
no, just like question, make them question. I mean, I'm glad you guys have friends who are similar, but I think. You know how people are. Sometimes they only listen from people they trust, and maybe women are not the best source, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, it's just women are complaining again." But when it comes from a man who they respect, look up to, befriend, I think it'll be more powerful, and we need more men like you guys to speak that way to them. So that's my.
I appreciate that.
No, 100%. Thank you. I think it's also part just like respect women's opinions. Take them on board, right? It's not just listen to the man, because then it might narrow. Narrow the problem is that, okay, if these guys are doing it, then it must be right.
Yeah.
But we could be wrong in certain view. So listen to the other side as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Like work, obviously, for us. Yeah, we're doing God's work.
You will.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll work. Don't worry.
So, this was super entertaining and interesting. Thank you so much, Razan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Razan.
Thank you, guys.
It was a great one.
Yeah.